We do continue this conversation. I'm joined in studio now by SABC News Specialist Correspondent Sophie Mokoena. Good afternoon, Sophie. Thank you very much for joining us on the program as always. So we've watched the unveiling of the Board of Peace members and now the Gaza Rebuild Master Plan. Let's just backtrack a bit, Sophie, and start with what exactly the board seeks to achieve.
Well, according to the United States of America, you'd recall that due to the intervention of Egypt, Qatar and the United States of America, there was a peace agreement that was signed last year. And that peace agreement had different stages as it relates to the implementation. The first phase was about the release of hostages, but also to allow the humanitarian assistance to reach Gaza. And lastly, to release Palestinians who have been in jails, in different jails in Israel, who were captured by Israeli military. And therefore, we saw those stages being implemented, stop and go, and finally, the phase one, according to President Trump, has been completed. But when you speak to Palestinians and people in Gaza, they still feel that even that phase one was not properly implemented, because you still have many thousands of Palestinians who are in jail in Israel. But secondly, the humanitarian crisis, we saw what happened to UNRWA this week, and the United Nations Security Council issuing that strong statement, the organization that is supposed to deliver the humanitarian assistance. So the last issue is that you still see Palestinians being killed. Only yesterday, 3 journalists were killed, were caught in a crossfire, and Palestinians are still being killed. The issue of taking the territory or encroaching in the territory of Palestine is still happening. And therefore, even phase one, much as President Trump say it is a success, there are still challenges. Now, this is the implementation of phase two, rebuilding of Gaza. The issue here is the exclusion of the affected party. You cannot rebuild Gaza or Palestine without Palestinians being involved. Just imagine having to talk about a new dispensation in South Africa, and you have the apartheid government and its surrogates that is from international community who supported the apartheid government sitting and deciding the future of South Africa without the black majority who were excluded at World Trade Center during Codesa. That wouldn't have worked.
No,
now,
certainly.
we see that is happening right now, the exclusion of the Palestinians and many people who supported the Palestinians, but also you have a situation where some allies are not there, the Western allies.
And I mean, Sophie, we just listened to that just now, where they were saying those who criticize must calm down and wait for 30 days. So quite arrogant as well, if you will, because some might say, as you say, that that criticism is legitimate, that you cannot decide on a rebuild project and exclude those that are meant to benefit from this very project. But let's now go to the countries that have agreed to be part of the board. We also heard Trump a bit earlier on saying all of those that are sitting there today are actually people he likes. Who are they?
Well, it's mostly your smaller countries and, of course, bigger countries in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, your Qatar, UAE. They are friends of the United States of America. It's no surprise. You would recall that President Trump, in one of his visits in the Middle East, he visited those countries, including Egypt, because it is an affected party. But the most strategic allies of the United States of America, when you look at the West, including NATO, some of them are not there. They are not part of this. They haven't committed themselves to be part of this. For example, United Kingdom, the Prime Minister is not there. He has indicated that he will not be part of this, while you have Tony Blair, who still has to answer as it relates to the mess they caused in Iraq, and still refusing to apologize on some of the current challenges Iraq is facing. Sitting there, the issue that has been very controversial as it relates to many countries in the Middle East, including the Palestinians, and of course some countries in other regions. But that's what you see right now. It's not your main powerful NATO member countries.
Mm-hmm. As we see there, some live visuals of Trump there shaking hands with some of those allies, if you will, or the members now that he says comprise of many people that he likes. But let's talk about the reasons for those who are considered U.S. traditional allies not agreeing to this or be part of this structure. What are the reasons? Because some say it's actually quite costly. That $1 billion itself would be somewhat of a political hurdle or financial hurdle on its own.
Well, I think it has to do with the current geopolitics, the shifting balance of forces. Some member states of European Union and NATO are very aggrieved after President Trump put that powerful and arrogant message to take over Greenland, even though yesterday he toned down. But that didn't sit well with many allies within NATO and in the West. And therefore, we may think it has to do with respect to territorial integrity of Palestine, people feeling that exclusion of Palestine will be problematic, or trying to align themselves with the Charter of the UN. But it also has to do with interest of the West and the European Union right now very aggrieved. And therefore, we don't know how long will this last, or behind the scenes, they will find a way perhaps to agree, and we will finally see them on the table. And that's a reason. The issue of double standards. These big countries, never trust them, full of double standards. If it doesn't suit them, they will never be part of it. If it suits them, they will be part of it. And it's something that the world must confront. When you take a position, it must be a principled position. Yeah. It shouldn't apply to this issue or this country or this region. It must be a principled position in line with the UN Charter, the world body.
Well, certainly. This was something you and I were speaking about yesterday, listening to Emmanuel Macron, who was quite aggrieved, now fighting for Greenland and remembering to state that sovereignty or integral, that to speak of the sovereignty of nations, but when it came to Venezuela, there was a different message. But many say that this broadened mandate beyond that, Sophie, is quite problematic. It seems it was one of the fears of most who decided to decline, as you say, that it probably seeks to create some sort of a shadow UN, if you will, because when listening to Trump, he was saying they will do whatever with the body, anything can happen, but he went on to say that they will, however, work in conjunction with the UN, but we already know that there's great disdain there or undermining of the UN when it comes to him, because he says they never helped him end any of the wars.
I didn't see UN representatives. Yes, the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, said he's not able to attend WEF this time around, World Economic Forum, because of flu. Maybe we may see him at the AU summit in 2 weeks' time, and when he's delivering his message, he may touch on these issues. But you are correct. Let's start with Russia. Let's take a listen at what President Putin had to say about an invitation to be part of this, so that we then move to the issue of how you link it to the UN being almost now a parallel structure with this board of peace. Let's take a listen.
Савельев Виталий Геннадьевич,
I would like to begin by thanking the US President for this proposal. We have always supported and continue to support any efforts aimed at strengthening international stability. We also acknowledge the current US administration's contribution to the search for a solution to the Ukrainian crisis. Regarding our participation, In the Board of Peace, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been instructed to study the documents received by us, consult with our strategic partners on this matter, and only then we will be able to respond to the invitation extended to us.
Consulting our strategic partners. Who are the main strategic partners of Russia right now as we look at the balance of forces? It is China, India, and South Africa. Let's listen at President Trump.
Mr. President, we'll be leaving in a little while, but this was a fantastic day, and I think the Board of Peace is going to be very powerful.
Will you have control of all of Greenland, Mr. President? You will have control of all of
Mr. President, what's your message to the allies who haven't signed up?
I think over 50. I think over 50.
What's your message to our allies, Mr. Trump?
What's the message for Greenland, Mr. President?
What is your plan for Ukraine? What will you say to Volodymyr Zelensky?
I meet with Ukraine, as you know, today. I meet with the President, and we'll be discussing it. We're meeting with President Putin today or tomorrow, and some people are going over, and I think they're getting close. A lot of people are being killed. We got to get it done. If we don't get that done, it would be a disgrace.
Is the deal finalized, Mr. President? When will you speak with President Putin?
Yeah, that's President. The media trying to get more information, but I think the focus this time around, Mfundo, was on the talks. You'd recall that he was supposed to meet President Zelensky yesterday, and of course his team is supposed to meet with the team of President Putin, and we know that the delegation is currently in Moscow. At the same time, you have the president of Palestine there also talking to President Putin today. But I want us also to return back to the clip where President Trump is talking about the UN to respond to your question.
I've always said the United Nations has got tremendous potential, has not used it. But there's tremendous potential in the United Nations, and you have some great people at the United Nations. But so far it hasn't. You know, on the 8 wars that I ended, I never spoke to the United Nations about any of them. And you would think that I should have. You would think they could have done those 8 wars, but they couldn't have. And they tried, I guess, in some of them, but they didn't try hard enough. But there's tremendous potential with the United Nations, and I think the combination of the Board of Peace with the kind of people we have here, coupled with the United Nations, can be something very, very unique for the world. It's for the world. This isn't United States. This is for the world. As everyone can see today, the first steps toward a brighter day for the Middle East and a much safer future for the world are unfolding right before your very eyes. Together we are in a position to have an incredible chance. I don't even call it a chance. I think it's going to happen.
There you have it, Sophie. Seems to answer the question that many were asking. Seems there's still very little regard for the United Nations, lending credence to just that assertion that perhaps this Board of Peace seeks to replace the work of the United Nations. But when many were saying that they are pro-multilateralism, it seems that Donald Trump subscribes to multilateralism, but one where he is at the center of it, or something that he has established.
Well, as it relates to the U.S. interest, he did make it clear that it is America first, and therefore he is willing to violate international law as long as it's in the interest of America as a superpower in line with 1823 Monroe Doctrine.
Okay, Sophie? Always a pleasure to have you with us in studio. That's Specialist Correspondent Sophie Mokoena there speaking to us following the unveiling of the Board of Peace members.